This lesson is a reminder on how to structure your sentences. It might be that you're struggling with comma splicing. It might be that you're trying to look at making a variety of sentences rather than just following the same format. But one way or another, it doesn't hurt to revise sentence structure. So in terms of types of sentences, you might remember that there are 3 different types: simple sentences, compound sentences, and complex sentences. And one way or another, there's only 3. That's it. So what are sentences built out of? Well, sentences are divided into sections, and each section is called a clause. A clause contains one main verb, which is a doing word, and a subject, and it tells you about one main idea. A clause can be either independent or dependent. Think about it in terms of people. If you're independent, you don't need anyone to help you or anything to help you. You stand alone. Whereas if you're dependent for some reason, you depend on something or somebody else to get by. You need to depend on support. So in terms of sentences, an independent clause can stand alone. It makes sense by itself. You don't need anything to help you understand it. It's a complete idea. You're not waiting for anybody to say or write something else. A dependent clause, if that was all that you had, would leave you hanging a little bit. You'd need some other information, either before it or after it, or maybe both, to make it make sense. It wouldn't be a complete idea. So a sentence can have one or more clauses. If a sentence has more than one clause, they need to be divided up either with joining words, conjunctions like and or but or so, or with certain types of punctuation for certain circumstances. And it's this one that we'll come to later if you're being advised that you need to look at comma splicing and how to avoid it. But for now, clauses in a sentence can either be joined up with words or with punctuation. So what is a simple sentence? Well, it's one clause. It tells you one main thing. It contains one main verb. It looks pretty simple, and it can exist by itself. It's an independent clause. If you look at a short sentence and it makes sense by itself, it's a complete idea. You're not waiting for any other information, and it's probably a simple sentence made up of an independent clause. So these are all examples of simple sentences. Cats are secretive. You've been told one thing about cats, it's a complete idea. You've got the verb in there, are, you've got a subject. The big blue car drove down the long, winding lane. Now we've added a few more adjectives. But it's one idea. It's about a car driving down a lane. She ran through the empty park. Yep, simple sentence. Grace was absolutely famished. Simple sentence. The kindness of strangers can be extraordinary. Simple sentence. Ollie's neighbour's cat did not seem to like the eerie sound of the wind in the trees. Still a simple sentence, one idea. Makes complete sense. "I didn't mean to," she called hopelessly. The dog ran across the road. If you think about simple sentences, look at this top tip. They tell you one main thing. They contain one main verb. And just on a basic technical point, they're going to start with a capital letter and end with a full stop. One complete idea, capital letter, full stop. Now, if your teacher has told you about comma splicing, this is something to avoid. Splicing means when you join something together. If you think of a tree branch or a tree, here's a really bad picture of a tree. If I want to splice a branch on, then I'm going to stick it on. Okay, craft it on, I might want to stick it there. It's when you're using commas to glue things together where they shouldn't be gluing things together. So, let's say you have two independent clauses. They can be simple sentences in their own right. Now let's look at that sentence. When you have two independent clauses, they can be simple sentences in their own right. We've got two clauses. Are they simple sentences? Well, they can be simple sentences in their own right, would work as an independent clause. But if I said, when you have two independent clauses, you'd be waiting for more information. So that must be a dependent clause. And there's my independent clause. So let's go back to our independent clauses. Let's give, say, two of them. The cat sat down, deliberately not putting any punctuation in. The cat was happy. Now, technically, both of those things can be simple sentences in their own right. The cat sat down, full stop. The cat was happy, full stop. You can't glue those together with a comma. Doing that would be the dreaded comma splice. So you cannot write the cat sat down, comma, the cat was happy. Can't do it. Commas don't act as glue between two independent clauses. Nope. You can use a word like and or but. The cat sat down and the cat was happy. Makes complete sense. You've turned it into a compound sentence. The cat sat down, but the cat was happy would also make sense. You might be able to join them with a semicolon. You might be able to join them with a colon. You might be able to join them together with a dash. What you can't do is you can't join them together with a comma. So, if you're looking at your writing, let's say the man sat in the park, he ate a sandwich. Comma splice or not a comma splice? The man sat in the park, he ate a sandwich. Yes, it's a comma splice, so that is wrong. So how could you write it correctly? Well, the man sat in the park, full stop, he ate a sandwich. Or the man sat in the park and he ate a sandwich. Or the man sat in the park but he ate a sandwich. Okay, but not a comma. The children watched the video. They sat in silence. cannot use a comma in that gap. You could use a dash. That would work. You could maybe use a semicolon. I'll put a full stop in there. You can't use a comma. One last one. The people watched. Oh, we've got two watched. The people watched, transfixed, the ball sailed over the net. No prizes for guessing. What are we not going to use in that gap? No comma. Let's use a full stop and a capital on that occasion. So we mentioned compound sentences before. Well, a compound sentence, if something's compounded, it's added to. So this sentence is going to be two or more clauses. It's going to tell you two or more main things. It's going to contain two or more main verbs. They could all be sentences by themselves. They don't need the rest of the sentence to help them make sense. They're all independent clauses. So where are you compounding them? Well, you're going to use some legitimate glue that's not a comma. So it could be a semicolon. They think it's all over. It is now. It could be a connective word. Molly was nervous about the exam, so she revised hard and wore her lucky socks. Archie loves English, but is irritated by the lack of correct answers. Brontophobia is the fear of thunder and shares its root with a mistakenly identified dinosaur. The human fight or flight response is not unique. Animals respond to fear in similar ways. All of those have got ideas that are joined together legitimately by either a proper bit of punctuation or a proper connecting word. A complex sentence is two or more clauses. It tells you two or more things of different importance. It contains at least one main verb, usually more. But here is the difference. Only some of the clauses could be sentences by themselves. Some of them would make no sense on their own. It's a mixture of independent and dependent clauses. Let's have a look at what we mean. Despite the weather, Caitlin was determined to make it to the music gig. Let's take out our punctuation scissors in terms of this, split it up. Which one makes sense by itself? If I said to you, Caitlin was determined to make it to the music gig, that makes sense, doesn't it? If I said to you, despite the weather, you'd be hanging on for more. That can't be an independent clause. And here, you can glue a dependent clause on with a comma. Okay, that's not a comma splice because this bit doesn't stand by itself. Stepping into the light, she turned and looked back for the last time. She turned and looked back for the last time. An independent clause. A simple, it would be a compound sentence. Makes sense in its own right. If I ran up to you and said, stepping into the light, you'd wait for me to finish the rest of my sentence because it's a dependent clause. You might see occasionally your English teacher write sentence fragment if all of a sudden you'd put a full stop there. Okay, sentence fragment occurs when you've actually treated a dependent clause, one that doesn't make sense by itself, as if it was a complete sentence. Due to an outstanding performance, Daniel Day-Lewis achieved an Oscar nomination for his portrayal of Lincoln. Do the same exercise in your head. Which is the independent clause? Which is the dependent clause? Although I lack any real talent, I enjoy a casual game of cricket. If I said to you, although I lack any real talent, are you going to say to me, dependent clause or independent clause? The Olympic athletes were said to be universally emotional at the closing ceremony, largely because of the atmosphere of support at London 2012. The Olympic athletes were said to be universally emotional at the closing ceremony. Dependent or independent clause? That's right, that one is an independent clause. The first bit makes sense by itself. This bit wouldn't. That's the dependent clause. So, the good news is you don't need to be able to explain this by heart. The bad news is you do need to understand what you're doing with different sentences in order to make sure you get good marks for your technical accuracy and you show off the best you can do. Look at your booklet. Can you write down what types of sentence these are? Pause the video while you do that now. Now over to you. On your worksheet, complete this exercise. Your starting point is the dog had a birthday party. Please write one compound sentence and one complex sentence about the dog and his party. Pause the video while you do that now. Now this says with a partner, but I want you to think about these yourself. What can you use and when? Are these correct? Could you change these sentences, or are you going to leave them the way they are? So the boy walked home sadly. He was depressed. His girlfriend had dumped him. He said he didn't care. No one believed him. Is that accurate? Fill out the answer in your worksheet. The boy walked home sadly. He was depressed. His girlfriend had dumped him and he said he didn't care, but no one believed him. Is that correct? Fill out the answer in your booklet. The boy walked home sadly because he was depressed. His girlfriend had dumped him and, despite him saying he didn't care, no one believed him. Fill out the answer in your booklet. Have a read of these sentences. The house was haunted. It creaked. The stairs glowed greenish yellow. She took a step. Silence. Then one long, blood-chilling scream echoed above her. Fill out your worksheet. The house was haunted and it creaked. The stairs glowed greenish yellow, but she took a step. Silence, and then one long, blood-chilling scream echoed above her. Is that one correct? Fill out your worksheet. The house which was haunted creaked. She took a step onto the stairs, glowing greenish yellow beneath her. The silence was broken because one long, blood-chilling scream echoed above her. Fill out your worksheet. Over to you. In your worksheet, write an example of a simple sentence, a compound sentence, and a complex sentence. These next 3 sentences are all simple sentences. Please change the first one to compound by adding some material, the next one to complex by adding some material, and the final one you choose, but you label what you've done. Write a description based on this picture. You have 3 minutes. You may only use simple sentences. Time yourself using the clock. Pause the video. Second task, write a description based on this picture. You have 3 minutes. You may only use compound sentences. Time yourself using the clock. Pause the video. Write a description based on this picture. You have 3 minutes. You may only use complex sentences. Time yourself using the clock. Pause the video. Compare your descriptions. What are their strengths and weaknesses? Well, this says discuss with a partner and be ready to feed back, but be ready to talk to your teacher about this. Now, this is extra practice. As an extension task, if you would like, choose one of your descriptions and complete a full description, varying your sentence structure for effect. Remember, you don't need to let sentence structure rule everything you write, but you must be aware of the value of mixing it up a little bit to support your purpose. And sentence structure is credited on our Key Stage 3 mark scheme for Year 7, 8 and 9 and the GCSE mark schemes. I hope this has helped. Please ask your teacher if you have any questions.